Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we watch not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows don't have the best pilot episode, and giving it that second chance might just change your mind.
Here we take that chance for you and let you know our opinion on if a show deserves more than one shot.
I'm Justice. Alongside me is my co-pilot Josh. Now, let's get ready for takeoff. Your in-flight entertainment this time will be Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
That was sign language for takes off.
Cool. The audience, the viewers, the listeners definitely heard that in such clarity they knew the sign immediately.
Hi, passengers. One of your pilots is learning sign language.
You know what? I want to do a podcast that's only in sign language. And I do mean a podcast, not a vodcast, a podcast. Audio only, sign language podcast.
One of your pilots is learning sign language so I can better communicate with the passengers.
He has just signed that he knows a little sign language.
Yes. It's going to be useful for the deaf passengers.
Fair. You make a fair point.
Anyways, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. It is the Netflix adaptation of the movie adaptation of the graphic novels. Yeah, roughly?
I mean, I would say it's more of a adaptation of the comics, but a remix of the comics.
No, because it has the entire movie cast.
Fair.
So it's an adaptation of the movie.
I still don't think that's right, but okay, whatever. So Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, episode 1.
Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life.
There you go. I let you do it. Are you happy?
I wouldn't say I'm happy. Like, I'm no worse off than normal, right? So
that's good, I guess.
How are you doing though?
I'm all right.
Are you happy?
Never. Life is consistent doldrums with very few peaks and one long, consistent valley. And you would expect such a big valley to have like good, fertile land for things to grow and prosper. That's not true.
It's all sand.
Yep.
I
live between
sand.
two giant shifting sand dunes.
I hate sand. It's coarse, gritty, gets everywhere.
I can't. The only thing I can imagine is a sand sculpture I've seen of Darth Vader with the thing captured from Obi-Wan being, "You've become the thing you swore you'd destroy," and it's just a sand sculpture of Darth Vader.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, like I said, is an adaptation of the graphic novel, rather directly or indirectly. It does have the entire movie cast returning for it, though.
Yeah, and it is animated by the Japanese animation studio Science Saru, who has done some great shit in the past.
Apparently, they've done my favorite anime movie of all time.
They did do Ride Your Wave. They also have done Lou Over the Wall, Ping Pong the Animation, which I haven't watched, but I've seen so many fucking clips from, and the animation looks amazing in it, which, from what I've seen and watched their stuff, makes sense. They did Devilman Crybaby. They did Space Dandy.
They did Lou Over the Wall, which is by the same director as Ride Your Wave.
Yep, I said Lou Over the Wall, just didn't mention the director.
Yeah, so they're a fairly well-known Japanese animation studio.
Yep.
That's done some really good stuff, like Ride Your Wave, one of the best anime movies of all time.
I would actually agree.
If you haven't seen it, listener, you should go see it. In preparation of you watching it, though, I will say you should probably bring some Kleenexes.
I wouldn't suggest that. They're not
because
necessary.
You will cry.
Nah.
Justice is a heartless automaton, so he did not cry. But
I'm not a heartless automaton. I'm a giant prehistoric reptile. We've covered this.
My apologies. Scott Pilgrim opens very similarly to how the movie opens.
Yep.
And I assume the graphic novel, I haven't read the first volume in a really long time.
I'm pretty sure it opens in the same way.
But we are in Scott Pilgrim's Dreams, which is a massive flat landscape of
desert.
Sand.
Yeah.
Everywhere. It's coarse and gritty.
And as he's just wallowing on the ground, a woman comes skating by.
Rollerblading by.
Yes. Rollerblades. Roller skates. Still skating.
Yeah, but I feel like skating, like, you could have been inferring that those are ice skates.
Fine, she comes blading by. Never heard someone refer to ice skating as blading, but I have heard people refer to rollerblading as blading. And it's almost like the worst type of person who rollerblades that calls it that.
Man, you want to go blading?
I honestly know.
We could go blading.
Look, the only way I accept that as a verb...
There's this sick downhill,
The
dude.
only way I accept blading as a verb is if you're saying we should watch all of the Blade movies, and even then I don't really want to. I'll watch the first one, but if it implies I have to watch the others, then no.
Blade Trinity's pretty good. But no, if you use blade as a verb to me, I assume we're talking about wrestling. Because
of course you do.
That's the verbiage for when you cut yourself.
I thought you were just going to ask me if I wanted to play Mountain Blade. Preferably Mountain Blade 2, but, you know.
So yeah, she comes by blading.
Yep. And she tells him to wake up, because it's time to wake up. And he does.
And then he turns to his gay roommate who sleeps in the same bed as him and goes, "It's the girl of my dreams.
I had that
saw
dream
her
again. Yeah. And Wallace, his cool gay roommate, is just like, cool, didn't care the first time, care even less now.
When are you going to get your own place?"
And then Scott's just like, isn't this my place? And then we get the same thing that we get in the movies and in the comics of pop-ups identifying what belongs to who. And Scott owns a poster, some dirty clothes, and his coat. Wallace owns everything else.
And Wallace starts fixing himself some coffee, and Scott goes, "Can I have some coffee?"
And Wallace is just like, no.
"You mean my coffee? In my apartment?" And Scott goes, "I don't have to take your sass." And Wallace is like, "No, you could leave. You could find another place, like I asked you to. Please."
So Scott steals his coffee and is drinking some, and he's like, ha, joke's on you. I was going to leave anyways. And he heads out to band practice.
Because Scott Pilgrim is in a band. Also, we should mention that this takes place not so long ago in Toronto, Canada.
Yes, because we get that as soon as he steps outside and zips his coat up.
Mm-hmm. So we get to band practice where we're introduced to some of the other main members of
the cast.
The Scott side of the cast.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, even in the movie, the cast can be broken up into like two segments. There's the Ramona-centric cast and the Scott-centric cast.
Yeah.
And this is the Scott-centric cast because here we meet Kim Pines, the drummer of the band.
Steven Stills.
Scott's ex.
Steven Stills, the lead singer and lead guitarist of the band. He also owns the house they're practicing in.
And then Scott is the bassist of the band.
Yep.
And we also meet Scott's current girlfriend, Knives Chow.
Sort of girlfriend.
She's 17.
Yep.
Scott's 23.
Yep. And we also meet young Neil, who also lives in the house.
Is young Neil Steven's brother, or do they just like live? Are they roommates?
I'm pretty sure they're brothers, but I'm actually not sure.
Like I never questioned it in my mind when watching the movie, right? Like,
yeah,
because the movie doesn't like say they live together, although like I guess it's implied in the movie that they live together. But like the anime makes it very clear that they live together.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Neil is his brother or is related to him in some way. I'm pretty sure the comics actually like make that clear, but it's been forever since I've read them all.
Also, the fact that he is young Neil implies the
existence of an older Neil.
Of an old Neil?
Yeah.
Maybe Neil Stiles is their father. And
perhaps.
He is old Neil. Anyways, that's everybody we meet here. Knives thinks the band Sex Bomb is the best band she's ever heard.
Yeah.
Which Steven is very excited to hear. And Kim is like, no, we're not.
And Steven's like, maybe Knives knows things other people doesn't. Maybe she's just, has better taste. And Kim's just like, she doesn't.
Maybe she just knows things other people don't.
Yeah.
And Kim's like, no.
And then we leave there to Scott and his friends walking to a party at Julie's house.
And Scott is asked by Steven, hey.
He's asked by Neil.
Sorry, he's asked by Neil, why isn't your girlfriend going with us to the party?
And Scott's just like, she's not my girlfriend. And Neil's like, well, then what is she? He's like, my sort of girlfriend?
Yeah. So they get to the party, and basically as soon as they get into the party, all of Scott's friends ditch him.
Yeah.
Although, friends is a strong term, so I don't know if Kim is Scott's friend.
It is up in the air. I mean, in the comics, I would argue she's not really a friend for like the vast majority, and then Scott stops being as much of an asshole and kind of repairs their friendship some.
I'd argue that's even the case in the movie. Like,
yeah,
she's not his friend until the second time he comes to G-Men's lair.
Yeah.
Like, the first time he comes, she just doesn't give a shit. And it's not until the second time he comes back and he apologizes to her, like...
Yeah, and he's like, hey, I'm a piece of shit. That she's like, okay.
Yeah, like...
Yeah, Kim's a simple person who, like, wants to play music and just wants to be treated like a fucking person.
Yeah, but drummers aren't people. I know drummers.
Fair. But anyways, at the party, Scott notices the girl of or from his dreams.
Which, I love that that's the way they refer to Ramona throughout these two episodes.
Yeah.
The girl of or from
Scott's dreams. So Scott sees Ramona, and
before he sees Ramona, yeah.
I mean, if you want to say before that he goes to get a drink, and he makes a mixed drink of Coke, cola, and orange juice.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, if you need more proof that Scott's fucked up.
I think there is an orange flavored Coca-Cola.
I don't know, man. Yeah, actually there is.
Yeah.
I think it's like an orange cream Coke.
Or orange twist Coke or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm basic. Like, it's either got to be Coke or sometimes sometimes vanilla Coke.
Yeah.
Vanilla Coke is honestly a little too silky smooth.
I mean, I'm fine with cherry Coke every now and then.
I mean, cherry Coke is fine, but I think at that point I'd rather just have Dr. Pepper.
Fair enough.
Like if I want cherry cola flavor,
Fair enough, I
Dr.
guess, yeah.
Pepper's more in that ballpark for me.
I don't like the spices.
But Dr. Pepper has 23 unique flavors.
Yeah, and like 20 of them are bad. Though I do appreciate that cherry Coke was the first cola invented specifically not to taste like any other thing that already existed. That was the goal of the man who made Dr. Pepper. He wanted to make a unique flavored soda.
Yeah, and he was successful.
He was also an actual pharmacist.
Yeah, Dr. Pembroke.
Yep.
Pemberton?
Pemberton, I believe, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I may not be right on that point, but I'm pretty sure it's Pemberton. Anyways, though.
Sorry, you brought it up. Like,
fine, go ahead.
See, it's really interesting because colas are actually, the flavor profile is based off of the cola bean.
Yes.
And so
was Pepsi.
Yeah, like, so colas in general are based off of something.
Yep.
And then, like, every other drink or food that you could imagine up until Dr. Pepper was 100% based on or made from the flavor profile of a naturally occurring thing.
Yeah. And then Dr. Pemberton was just like, do you understand, like, what we can do here? The things that can be done with this style of beverage. I'm going to make something completely unique.
Yeah, which, I mean,
like,
even if
kudos to him.
Even if you don't like Dr. Pepper, like, applause.
Like, I can't actually think of any other flavored beverage like that that's not supposed to taste like something else.
Yeah, and I think, like, it's even part of our lexicon. Like, when somebody says, oh, hey, I just tried this thing, somebody's always like, oh, hey, what did it taste like? We're expecting, like, notes we can relate to.
Yeah.
But, like, Dr. Pepper doesn't have that. You can't be like...
It's got a kind of sweet taste, and, like, it's
kind
of, like, spicy, but it's not.
Yeah, like...
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, Dr. Pepper. So, off the topic of Dr. Pepper, because we need to get off that topic before
Yeah, we do. Scott goes to talk to Ramona.
Well, before he talks to Ramona, he goes to Julie.
No, he goes to Julie afterwards.
Oh, yeah, okay, you're right. You're right.
He goes to talk to Ramona. He sidles up to her from the side and then asks her if she knows anything about Sonic, and then relates a story about how in the 90s there were 2 Sonic cartoons airing
at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And the guy who voiced Sonic in both shows, one in which was dark and edgy, and another one was a comedy involving chili dogs.
And it ends with him being like, isn't it so wild that one guy voiced 2 different versions of the same character? Which is such a meta commentary because, again, this is Michael Cera, who played Scott Pilgrim in the live action movie, playing Scott Pilgrim in the anime.
Yeah.
The meta commentary. Beautiful.
It doesn't read as heavy as a meta commentary at first when, because spoiler, you've probably already seen it if you're interested in Scott Pilgrim. Show takes a massive turn for both the movie and the comics, but before that, it reads pretty faithful to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel as like of a heavy-handed meta commentary joke because he's not playing that different of a character.
Mm-hmm.
But assumedly, everyone else that's going to be involved in the show going forward after the end of this one is going to be a bit different at the very least.
Yeah.
We already know one character is very different by the end of these 2 episodes.
Wait, who are you talking about?
The best character.
Oh, yeah. I love him so much. But anyway, she's like, yeah.
They're fine.
And
she doesn't clarify whether she's talking if chili dogs are fine or cartoons are fine.
He's like, oh, do you not like
cartoons?
Sonic? You don't like cartoons or chili dogs? And she's like, they're fine. But I was into classics, like...
old reruns of shit. She says some show, I don't remember.
Columbo.
Yeah. And then Scott asks if she's real, and she's like, did you just ask me if I was real? And he's like, nope. Talking to someone else, crushes his cup, and robotically, stiffly walks away.
Let me tell you something. At a party, the question, are you real, is such a valid question.
Yeah,
because he's like, when they go, did you just ask me if I was real? You just go, you don't know what drugs I'm on right now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know my subjective experience of reality at this second.
Yeah, I'm very high, and or I haven't slept in days. Who knows? Or it could be a probing question, like, are you real, as in, like, are you a real person, as in, like, are you fake? Do you act fake as fuck, or what?
Are you an NPC?
Yeah.
Like, do you...
So many ways you could take that, but Scott is Scott, and he walks away robotically and stiff. And there is a point here, though, that I like animation. I love the animation overall, constantly. The framing that they do for this is amazing. Like, when we first see Ramona, we get a shot from, like, her rollerblades across the desert from, like, a low-angle shot, so the dust is kicking up. It's great. As she circles around Scott, Scott's head doesn't rotate, but the face is just kind of stays steady and tracks with the front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So it's odd, but it's great. And here, though, when he gets nervous and is talking, you can see the top line of his mouth get kind of wobbly and distorted, and it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So then he goes and wanders through the party until he encounters Julie,
Who's just like, why the fuck are you here?
Who's throwing the party, yeah. And she's like, why the fuck are you here?
Fun fact, Julie dislikes Scott.
And he's like, I'm a +1. And she goes, there are no +1s. My parties are perfectly curated. And he's like, oh, well,
Do you know a girl with hair like this holds up a picture on which he has drawn Ramona's hairstyle?
Which, it's so accurate to the comic.
Yep.
It's so accurate to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the drawing, like, when he held it up, I was like, oh, that's just the exact drawing from the movie. That's the exact one.
I mean, the front bangs, the front side bangs aren't as like loopy drawing as they are in the movie. Like in the movie, my brain partially goes, oh, it's supposed to be your hair loopies from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That thing, my brain just goes, it's supposed to be the hair loopies. Know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
So
hair loopies and Warriors Wolf Tails.
Yeah. Why'd you draw me with Momo's ears? Those are your hair loopies.
Oh fuck.
And then Julie's like, Ramona Flowers? So this is where Scott learns her name. And then she kind of explains that Ramona's new in town, moved here from New York, got a job delivering DVDs for Netflix. Because in the original comic and in the movie, she was delivering packages for not Amazon, but Amazon.
In the movie, it is
Amazon.
It's just Amazon, yeah. Amazon.ca.
Yeah. And in the...
Hey, Wallace, what's the website for Amazon.ca?
Amazon.ca. But, so, in this, she's delivering DVDs for Netflix, because Netflix used to do that. They closed it. They shuttered it like a year or two ago now, I believe.
I was like, until very recently, they still were.
They have shuttered it since then.
And the entire time, Julie's like explaining who Ramona is. Scott's like repeating back certain phrases from it.
But in a much more positive note.
And it's not like, it's not even just he's repeating phrases. He's like, she's like,
she's from New York.
She's from New York. And he's like,
the Big Apple.
Yeah, the Big Apple. And she moved here after a bad breakup. She's single.
She doesn't really have a lot of friends. She needs friends. Yep.
I don't think the anime has the I forbid you from...
I think it does, because Julie's eyes get the red glare on them, and she gets like superimposed on the screen somewhat.
I think she just says stay away.
I think she says stay away, something like that, yeah. It's the same vibe, though.
I want to tell you, if you haven't seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the movie, not you, Justice, but the passengers on this plane. If you have not seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World, you need to do yourself a serious favor, carve out a 2-hour block of free time in your life, sit down, and watch the movie.
I would agree.
Not just because it's legitimately hilarious and a very fun time, but because the cast is so good, and they all deliver so well, and you'll recognize like everybody in the movies. They're all like this, like they weren't super famous at this point. A lot of them were still famous, but like for a lot of them, this was their jumping off point to getting in bigger roles.
We got Chris Evans, we got Brendan Routh, we've got
Michael Cera, obviously.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Why is my brain blanking on her? Captain Marvel.
Brie Larson.
Yeah.
I think this was one of Brie Larson's first big ones.
I don't know.
That's fair. Me neither. Like I said, I think.
But anyways, from here, Scott goes home, and we then see him sitting at the computer ordering a DVD from Netflix.
And we find out from our conversation with Wallace here, because that Scott can't rent DVDs from the local DVD place because his tab is way too high.
Yeah, it was way too much in late fees.
Yeah.
And when Scott asks what he should rent, Wallace tells him to rent a video with a hot guy, and then suggests Lucas Lee when the search of hot guys gets no results, because of course it doesn't.
I honestly expected searching for hot guys on a DVD rental service to have a lot more results than that.
Yeah, but he also searched as like all one word.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think I need the name of a hot guy.
Yeah. So Wallace suggests Lucas Lee, a character that if you've watched the movie or the comics you are familiar with.
And Scott scrolls through some of Lucas Lee's films until he gets to Game Over 2. It's over a second time.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah, and Scott's just like, ooh, it's over a second time. It's been over before. And then he orders it and sits at the door and waits. And Wallace is just like, it's not going to be here that soon. Scott's just like, how long can it be?
And then we get a montage of time passing and Wallace like going about his life and like doing stuff and leaving the apartment for like 2 or 3 days and then coming back and then like...
I don't think we actually ever see Wallace come back.
We don't see him come back. You're right.
And then the door rings and Scott immediately opens it and it's Ramona delivering a DVD.
And she's like, aren't you the Sonic guy?
And he's like, yeah. And she's like, so here's your DVD, Wallace Wells. And he's like, no, that's my cool gay roommate. He lets me use his credit card, which Wallace does not let him use his credit card. Scott just does it.
And Ramona's like, so like a sugar daddy situation.
A sugar what?
The delivery on this show is almost as good as the delivery in the movie, if not better at some points.
And then as Ramona goes to leave, Scott asks her to go on a date, and she's like, you want to go on a date with me? He's like, it could be a low-key team up.
You know, America, Canada. You're new to town. I'm old to town.
Yeah. And then we cut to them going on a date in the park.
Can I just tell you how much both the graphic novel, the movie, and the animes, you're new to town. I'm
old to town.
Old to town. Like that line.
Yeah, that line
fucking slays. Bryan Lee O'Malley.
He has some great lines.
Thank you. That line is so good.
Yeah.
And also the line where he shows up to the park, he's like, why are you just waiting there? Why are you just standing there?
She's like, I'm waiting on you, dude. Yep. And so they walk through the park, and they kind of establish that we're not going to talk about our pasts, because Scott asks about Gideon, who she mentions as saying that Gideon always said Toronto was one of the great cities, which is why she came here after she broke up with whoever. And then she asks Scott about his job, and she's like, oh, it's a long story filled with sighs and woe. And she's like, cool, we just cannot talk about our past.
Specifically, she asks what he does, and he's like, I'm between jobs.
Between what and what? And he's like, oh, my last job was a long story filled with woe and sighs. And she's like, cool, we don't have to talk about our past, that's fine. And then they're sitting on the swings talking about how the weather's starting to pick up. It's kind of cold. Scott asks if it's snowed where she's from, and he's just like, that's the past. He's like, it's a location.
Locations aren't the past.
Yep.
Except they are.
Yeah.
Some locations don't exist anymore. Like the cities that Mount Vesuvius claimed.
I mean, Pompeii's still around.
Pompeii doesn't exist anymore. It never existed. Mount Vesuvius erased it from the timeline.
Pompeii had one of the more well-known garum distribution.
No, we're not talking about fish oil.
But they found so many jars with the labeling of a garum dispensary that was located in Pompeii throughout the Roman world.
We're not talking about fish oil.
Fine. Have it your way.
So
Scott establishes that he's from further up north, and Ramona says she grew up in the mountains. They're both fairly used to snow. Also, there's something we forgot to mention when they meet up, and Scott's like, are you the girl from my dreams? And she's just like, oh, yeah, there's a super convenient subspace highway that runs right through your head.
It's like 3 miles and 15 seconds.
I don't know what that is in kilometers.
And it's not when they meet up for the date. It's before they go on the date. When she's delivering the package.
Yeah. And Scott's just like, yeah, cool. A space subway. I get it.
He does not get it. And so the snow starts picking up, so they start making their way downtown, walking fast.
And Ramona sees a star door, which
is past.
The representation of the subspace highway, both in the comics, the video game, the movie.
And the anime.
Yeah.
And they're homebound.
Yeah.
Because the star door actually does lead homebound.
Well, to Ramona's home.
Yeah.
Her apartment. And so they go there, and they're both fucking freezing because it was a blizzard, basically. And they go to get tea. And Ramona goes to grab a blanket for Scott because he is freezing. She sets a timer to let the tea steep. And we cut between it and Scott rapidly. The timer going down by a minute.
Yeah, he's sitting there for 3 minutes while she goes to fetch a blanket. And he's like, and then he gets up. He's like, I'm going to go see about getting that blanket. I'm freezing. And he goes into Ramona's room where she is changing because
she's in wet clothes and it's fucking cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she's just like, whoa, dude, I'm changing. And he's like, I'm sorry. I'm just cold and innocent. And closes his eyes. And
covers them with his hands.
He's like, it's fine now. I can't see anything.
She comes up to him and presses against him. Is like, is this better? I'm cold too.
Yep.
And then there's a moment where Scott goes, were you just planning on...
Well, look, they kiss first here.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry.
And when they get done, they're both just like, sparks. They're like, yeah. And then Scott's like, so are you just going to bring the blanket from your bed? She's like, yeah, I guess. And he's like, well, what if we both got under it?
Well, it was on your bed.
Because, we're both so cold. And then they proceed to make out in just their underwear on top of the bed. And it's just like, what the fuck? The blanket's doing
not
nothing.
Helping anybody.
You have pushed the blanket farther down the bed and you are not using it. And you're both ostensibly cold.
And now you're in your underwear, which means you're even colder. Stop it.
I get human bodies have warmth, and technically, to prevent hypothermia, you should strip down more layers of your clothes and, cling to each other for warmth. But you're not even doing that. She's, on all fours, kissing him while he's sitting cross-legged on the other side of the bed. No one here is warm. Your only point of contact is your fucking face. Use the blanket. I get it's just an excuse, but stand by your fucking excuse.
Well, it's not an excuse because he's legitimately shivering and shaking.
Not anymore.
He's
forgotten about it. So then we see them both partially under the cover, and Scott's just like, I don't think I can do this. And Rona's like, I've changed my mind. I don't want to have sex with you, Scott.
Pilgrim. She calls him Pilgrim.
And also, when she said, I've changed my mind, he's like, from what to what?
Which is also a classically good line.
Yeah.
I've changed my mind. From what?
So then she's like, I'm not going to kick you out of my bed. You can stay here for the night. And I reserve the right to change my mind about sex in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, oh, cool. And then we cut to the morning.
And Scott, startles awake. He's like, what time is it?
Yeah, his sleep bubble pops and he wakes up.
Yeah.
And she's just like, and Ramona's like, it's a bit before 8, but you got to get up and leave because I got work.
Mm-hmm.
Fair. Completely. And then Scott's just like, can this not be a one-night stand? I don't even know if it counts.
And she's like, what do you have in mind? And he goes, my band is playing tonight at 9 o'clock. You should come to the show.
And then hesitantly as she's walking to the bathroom. She's like, "You have a band?" He's like, "Yeah, we're terrible. Please come." So she agrees.
I love how blatantly honest he is.
Yeah.
Like, they're not terrible, right? Like,
Yeah, they're fine.
I know they're supposed to be like, I don't even know if they're supposed to be bad. They're just,
I think the idea in which their music's presented, in which it's bad, is that they are a indie band.
that they're like an indie punk band. So like,
They're like a classic indie punk band, whereas none of their songs like top out above 2 minutes.
yeah.
Which doesn't mean they're bad. Like, there's a bunch of indie bands that do that, and they're great.
I think it's more just like, there's this idea where like creatives and artists in general don't recognize how good their work is most of the time. And so like Styles is constantly like afraid that everybody's going to think their music sucks. And
Yep.
Kim probably has the most realistic take about their music out of the entire band, but she still thinks they're not good.
Yeah.
And then I think Scott like just embraces the fact that like they're not professional musicians. And he's just like, oh yeah, we're not good, but like,
Yep. So then Scott returns home, and he's like, "Bet you're wondering why I didn't come home last night." And
I have to say, out of all three versions of this scene,
Yep.
the graphic novel, the movie, and the anime, the movie just does it best because of the Seinfeld stings.
I'll give you that, yeah. And Wallace is like, yeah, I don't know how I got that lucky. Scott's just like, actually, I'm the one that got lucky. I stayed with the girl of, or from my dreams last night, Ramona Flowers. And Wallace is like, that's good. You've got to break up with your fake high school girlfriend. And Scott's just like, but it's hard, and I don't want to.
And are we even dating to begin with?
Wallace is just like, Knives thinks you're dating, the name of Scott's high school girlfriend, and she's an angel.
I'm sad they didn't let Michael Cera do more Michael Cera in this scene.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, they just let him do Michael Cera, and he's like,
Yeah.
but it's hard.
Yeah.
And like in the movie, Wallace is currently cheating on his boyfriend with another guy in this scene. And
Yeah, he's like, double standard. And Wallace just goes, if you got a problem, take it up with Liberace's ghost. Yeah.
But yeah, I fucking love it.
Actually, I believe it's, don't cite the gay handbook at me. If you've got a problem with it, take it up with Liberace's ghost.
Yeah. So Scott then essentially turns around and leaves again because...
Nope.
No? Okay, my bad.
Wallace points out that Scott got a letter.
Yes. Yes, the
So
letter.
Scott starts to read it, and it's just like, Dear Scott Pilgrim, I am Matthew Patel, blah, 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 something about fighting.
League of Evil Exes, da-da-da-da-da.
More like the League of Boring. Crumples the letter, throws it behind his shoulder.
Then we cut to
The
the
Rocket.
Rocket,
Yeah.
where Scott has the show.
And it's Knives walking in, and she approaches Wallace and Scott's sister, Stacy.
Who she hasn't met up until this point yet.
And Stacy is 4 years younger than Scott. She is 19. And Wallace is just like, hey, how's it going? And Knives is like, oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see Sex Bomb perform live. It's going to be great. And Wallace is just like, you seem pretty upbeat for someone who got crushing news today.
No, you seem too upbeat to be somebody that received crushing news today.
Yep.
And she's like, crushing?
In a bad way? And then Stacy's just like,
Oh, you poor sweet angel.
You poor sweet angel. You're too good for him. And she's just like, what? And then Scott walks in.
It's Stacy's played by the ever amazing Anna Kendrick.
And then Scott walks in. Actually, we forgot a scene.
What scene?
After Scott and Ramona go to bed, we have,
Oh, yes.
actually before they even get to her house,
Yes,
when
yes.
they sit on the swing set, we go to Gideon Graves in his lair, watching them on a screen, and he asks to be sent Matthew Patel.
Bring me Matthew Patel.
Yeah, and then we go back to their morning thing, and then before the rocket, we cut back to them, so like, here's where we get the second scene there, and it's Matthew Patel arriving to talk to Gideon Graves.
Yeah, but Matthew Patel arrives before we cut to
Yeah.
him arriving home
Yeah.
that morning.
And he's just like, what's going on? And Gideon's like, Ramona has a new suitor. And then Matt's just like, how many dates have they been on?
One, but he's currently in her bed with her.
Yeah. And then he provides like information that they have on him because Gideon's interns collected it, and it's that he's 23 years old, in a band, hopeless, jobless, and dating a high schooler. To which Matthew Patel's just like, and I thought we were evil.
Oh yeah, Matthew Patel's like, does she know about Ramona? And
Does Ramona know?
Does Ramona know? And Gideon's like, not as of yet. And he's like, I thought we were evil.
Mhm.
And he's sending Matthew to fight God apparently.
Yep.
And Matthew goes, and I'll kill him, and then he'll be dead.
Scott Pilgrim's death is inevitable because I'll kill him. And then he'll be dead because I killed him. Yeah.
It's honestly, a lot of these lines that they give to Matthew Patel here feel more
kind
like
of Lucas or Toddish.
they feel very Toddish from the movie. Like they feel very similar to Todd's cleaning lady monologue.
Yeah.
You'll be dust by Monday, and something like, and the cleaning lady will clean you up because you'll be dust.
Yeah.
But why Monday? Because it's Friday now, and she has
doesn't
the
work
weekends
the
off.
weekends. So yeah, Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monday.
Uh,
Because you'll be dust, and she dusts. Anyways, though, so back at the Rocket, Scott walks in. Knives is really excited to see him. Scott sees Knives, and then he sees Ramona, and he just dips. He's like, I gotta go, and runs backstage.
Mm-hmm. So before Sex Bomb goes on, Styles is panicking because the opening band for them, Crash and the Boys, have dropped out. They flaked. They're not going to open. And he's like, it's because they know we suck. And then Kim was like, well, we might, but...
Yeah, and Styles is like,
we can't suck. If we suck,
then they'll know we'll suck. Then the audience will know we suck. And then Scott's just like, the only way to show that we don't suck is to play now.
Yeah. And out in the audience, Knives is like, oh, how do you know Sex Bomb? Are you a fan?
Yeah, she's talking to Ramona at this point.
And Ramona's like, no, I'm actually kind of seeing someone in the band. And Julie pipes up like,
who are you dating in the band? And just then Kim starts in on We Are Sex Bomb, and then they start playing.
Which, this is my... I'll wait till the end of the episode to play that out. But
so as they're playing, the back wall breaks, and in comes Matthew Patel. And he flies across to the stage and punches Scott, but Scott blocks and then reverses it.
Mm-hmm.
Scott asks who he is, and Matthew Patel introduces himself as Ramona's first evil ex-boyfriend. Now, it's important here to state that the moment Sex Bomb started playing, basically, Knives passed out.
Yes. She was so excited, she screamed, threw her arms in the air, and then passed out.
Yes.
Right before Matthew Patel blew through the back wall and attempted to sucker punch Scott.
Yeah. So Scott's just like, who are you?
And why are we fighting?
So Matthew's like, I'm Ramona's first evil ex. Didn't you read my letter?
And Scott's like,
kinda?
I skimmed it? And could you just...
tell me what it's about? As he's setting the guitar down, kind of sitting cross-legged on the stage, and Matthew gets angry. He's like, I'm part of the League of Evil Exes.
No, Matthew's like,
I hand-delivered that in a blizzard, yeah.
In the middle of a blizzard, and then...
It was very well written.
There was a lot of information there.
Yeah.
But he basically summarizes, Ramona has 7 evil exes, and in order to date Ramona, you have to beat the 7 evil exes.
Yeah.
And
Scott's just like, you dated him?
And Ramona's like, yeah. And like,
he's like, freshmen?
He's 8th grade.
Yeah.
But he's like, you knew about this?
She's like, I thought it was a joke.
Which,
I heard about it. I thought it was a joke.
To be fair, if I found out that all of my exes had teamed up to form a league, to form a group and called themselves the
League of 7 Evil Exes, I'd be like, that's a fucking joke, right?
Like, guys, girls, come on. Like,
guys, gals, non-binary pals, what the fuck's going on here?
I get it. I'm great, but
too much. There's a reason we don't date anymore, okay?
Just like, this is the cherry on top of reasons to never date you again.
Yeah. So Ramona explains that she dated Matthew for like a week and a half in like 8th grade.
Yeah, because all of the jocks wanted her for some reason, and Matthew Patel was the only non-jock, non-white boy around.
Yeah, and then they broke up after a week and a half, and he moved really far away, and he didn't even really become evil until high school anyways.
Yeah.
So they go to fight, and we get the announcer with Scott Pilgrim versus Matthew Patel. Round 1.
And then
fight.
And then Matthew Patel lands one really strong, really good punch on Scott's jaw.
And Scott poofs into $2.10 in Canadian.
Which is much less in American.
Yeah.
It's like, what, 42 cents?
Yeah, and then he hoists up Ramona's arm and is like, I did it. I won.
There's no reason why you can't date me now. And she just like tugs her arm out of his hand and walks off. Which, hilarious, because like, the concept of a league...
that doesn't happen.
Oh.
I mean, I was wrong, actually. He doesn't even hold up her hand here. He's like, I did it. I won. And then we close in on Ramona's face, just like staring at the coins, and that's the end of the episode.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's the end of this episode.
So, what are your thoughts on episode 1 of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off?
What the fuck, Justice? Scott Pilgrim is dead at the end of it.
At the end of episode 1?
It is called... The show is called Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, so really, the name makes sense. The twist was in the title, like... Scott Pilgrim, he's gone.
But I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it from like the stuff we heard beforehand. It was supposed to be a more faithful adaptation of the comics into a show, and I was like, that's cool. I really liked the comics. And then the end of this happened. I was like before this, I was like, oh, there's a few small things. She delivers DVDs for Netflix. Crash and the boys aren't playing. That's fine. And then it was just and Scott's dead. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
I think really this is just an AU fanfic where it's just what happens if Matthew Patel was the strongest evil ex.
Yeah.
Like that's the AU.
Because they don't appear to be ranked in strength. Like it's not implied that that's their order of strength. It's just the most recent exes is how it's established.
Yeah, it's a timeline thing.
Yeah.
Gideon being the most recent, Matthew being the oldest.
Yeah.
Which it's weird that they power curve. Like
Ramona has a type and it's stronger than the last.
Ramona continuously upgrading.
Gotta have that logarithmic scale of power.
Like a computer nerd in their PC.
Oh shit, the specs on this X are out. Gotta get a new one.
Oh, hello.
Fair, though. I mean, it's kind of true. But overall, your thoughts? You enjoy episode 1 of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off?
Yeah. Like, obviously, it would have had to been a Velma-level rehash of Scott Pilgrim for me to not like it, because whatever other graphic novel, excellent. The movie is and forever will be, like, a genre staple.
I would agree, yeah.
It's just a cult classic at this point. I don't even know if it's a cult classic. It failed in movie theaters because it didn't get enough hype buzz, but it was insanely successful by the people who did watch it. Like, the DVD sales were good. The video games have always sold well. Like,
I did personally rebuy it when it came out on the NES. Not on the NES, sorry, on the Switch, which is technically a Nintendo Entertainment System. It's just not the Nintendo Entertainment System, though arguably it is the current Nintendo Entertainment System.
So, can I almost brought it up while we were talking about it.
You can talk about your one complaint.
My one complaint, other than the fact that the title is very accurate, my one complaint for episode 1 is, man, that music from the movie is just so iconic.
You just missed the Beck music.
God, Garbage Truck is such a banger.
I mean, all this music is still really good and feels like it fits Sex Bomb.
Yeah, and
And
also
the opening song is also great.
Also, Beck's We Are Sex Bomb.
Yeah.
God, that song kills.
Like, I understand being like, man, the movie music is great and I kind of miss it. I do. And maybe we'll get more of it throughout. Who knows?
Look, I
do also kind of miss it. And I'm not going to lie. I miss Crash and the Boys' song.
Yeah. Well,
both of their songs.
Yeah. Spoilers for episode 2. We get a song by Envy Adams.
Yes.
And I'm also very upset that that's not the
Black Sheep.
Black Sheep. Yeah.
But also Black Sheep's song wouldn't make sense there.
No, it wouldn't. But like
yeah.
that cover of Black Sheep by Brie Larson is iconic. Like
yeah.
I can't remember the actual name of the band.
The Metric.
The Metric, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Metric's version,
also
fine.
Good. And also the rest of the Metric's music is also really good.
Brie Larson's version of Black Sheep,
mm-hmm.
legitimately like
a banger. Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim's music and like the bass line from Garbage Truck is just like forever ingrained in my brain. Like
yeah. So after episode 1, would you watch more?
Yeah, I would watch more. I plan on watching the entire series.
Same.
Like even after episode 1, I plan on watching every episode. And Netflix, this is an actual honest to God threat. You can use this as evidence in court. If you cancel Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, I will hunt you down.
Fair.
And I have a very particular set of skills, and I will use them.
They're not very functional for hunting people down, but I mean, as long as you apply yourself hard enough, I think people can generally do most things.
And then
when a positive outlook on the human
and once I find
spirit.
you, I will apply those skills as well. And at that point, those skills are really just me being like, please bring it back.
Trust me, it's very annoying. I've dealt with it. Anyway, so on to episode 2 of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, which is A League of Their Own.
Yeah, so this is a Scott Pilgrim parody of the women's baseball movie, A League of Their Own.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No, it's a parody of A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah.
No. It has the same title as the baseball movie.
Which is why we know it's not a parody.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay.
So this starts off with Matthew then hoisting up Ramona's arm and being like, I won. I did it. We can date now. And Ramona just like rips her arm away and walks off.
Which I'm glad that like the anime analyzes this. I don't know how much the graphic novel gets into this idea. That the evil exes are fighting Scott because A, they don't want anybody else to date Ramona if they can't.
Yep.
But B, because they're under the impression that if they beat Scott, they can date Ramona again.
Yeah, it seems to be the implication for them.
Which makes zero sense because it takes all of Ramona's agency out of it.
I mean, but we do know from the movie, Gideon does not care about Ramona's agency.
That's 100% true.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then after everybody's left the venue, everybody's left the rocket.
Except for Matthew, who's just trying to figure out what the fuck to do from here. She's like, anyone get a video of that fight? Anything?
So Knives wakes up and she looks around. She's like, did I miss it? Is the concert over? And the guy cleaning up the venue is like, there was no concert. Bass player got punched to death. And she goes, punched to death?
Like, to death?
He goes, that's what I said.
Yeah, those are the words I said. And then from there, we cut to Ramona bleaching her hair and dyeing it blue.
Which, if we don't get you punch the highlights out of her hairline later... I will be incredibly upset. That technically has nothing to do with Ramona.
Yeah.
But that line delivery by young Nil.
Dude, I just need the drummer with robotic arms to show up.
You punched the highlights right out of her hair.
Because in the Clash of Demon Head's drummer is the one that does that in the comics.
Oh, is he?
That
baby's their robot. Got it.
I don't remember if they're completely robot. I just can't remember if it ever says what gender they are.
Well, that makes more sense. Like I like Lucas doing it, Todd doing it, perfectly fine. But Todd wouldn't actually punch her. He would just like
vegan smack her.
Yeah, use his mind powers.
But after Ramona does her hair, we then see her dressed in all black and heading into a church for Scott's funeral.
And Nil and Kim are sitting in front of
Ramona in the pews
talking about Scott's death. And Nil goes, I can't believe he died.
And Kim's like, it was bound to happen. He was always taking on high-level enemies.
And Nil goes, yeah, but he never lost.
And she's like, not everyone wins.
Can't win all the time. And he goes, the house
does. She's like, what? He's like, like casinos. And Kim's like, I'm gonna go sit somewhere else.
Which, honestly, I fucking love young Nil here. Kim is like so deadpan. Like I said, I don't think she's his friend at this point.
Yeah.
But she obviously still cares about Scott as a person. To be like, she is actually in mourning. I don't know if young Nil knows what mourning is. He's just like, the house.
Yeah. So then, as Kim leaves,
the house
young Nil notices.
The house always wins.
Nil notices Ramona behind him. So he scoots down his pube and he's like, hey, you're that girl that got Scott killed. And she's just like, okay. And And then in comes Knives, wearing Scott's coat with his X-Men patch on it.
Which we didn't talk about the joke.
It's fine.
That,
and wearing a Sex Bomb shirt, and she notices Ramona. She's like, you killed Scott Pilgrim, and starts yelling about how it's all Ramona's fault. And Ramona's just like, that's not fair.
The best part is the attendees at the funeral are like, this is the most dramatic funeral I've ever been to. Like,
so they're kind of just murmuring in the background, being like, oh, this is so intriguing. How scandalous. It's great. And we see Styles talking to Scott's coffin, and he's just like, man,
now I'll never know if we sucked.
Which is nice, I guess, but I wish it was different circumstances. And then as we cut back to the funeral members, and she's like, it's so dramatic. It can't get any more dramatic. And then the narrator cuts in and goes, or can it? And we see a limo, a giant-ass long fucking limo.
Super stretched limo.
Pull up, and then we see red carpet roll out, and out walks Envy Adams surrounded by ninja paparazzi.
I love ninja paparazzi. But Envy Adams, Brie Larson's character, strolls into the funeral, and she's like, I don't want to make this all about me.
But let's make it all about me.
But I am going to perform a song.
There is so everyone when they see Envy is super excited, and there is one lady sitting in the pew who has the best of all of the crowd reaction lines, and it's just, icon, queen, mommy. Yeah. And as Envy is standing in front of Scott's coffin, she's just like, as all of you know, I dated Scott in my pre-celebrity life.
And Knives is like, we all didn't know that.
And she's so excited. Because when Envy shows up, Knives throws off her Sex Bomb shirt, and she's like, Envy Adams, she's the lead singer of my favorite band, The Clash of Demon Head. And Styles is sitting here like, oh, Spy's like, I thought we were your favorite band.
And she's like, well, you know, like, The Clash of Demon Head's my favorite actual band.
You guys are my favorite not real band. And then Envy talks about how, so yeah, she dated Scott, and she doesn't really remember much of it, but she's gonna sing a song.
And the song she performs is
I Will Remember You.
But it's I Will Remember You as performed by the Metric with Brie Larson vocals.
Yes.
Because they even got the Metric back justice.
Yeah. And then it gets very poppy after like the I Will Remember You, Will You Remember Me line, and then it just gets very poppy. She sings her song, leaves, and everyone follows her, except for Ramona,
who walks up to the casket, and we haven't seen into the casket yet.
And there was one thing I wanted from this. One thing. And I was so happy when it was the case. The $2.10 Canadian is the only thing sitting in the casket.
And so Ramona apologizes to the coins that were once Scott Pilgrim.
And during Envy's song, we have a brief montage of the exes showing up at their places of residence and getting a black envelope with their number written in gold filigree on it.
And the letter is, as we learned from Gideon, who reads the letter, summoning them to a
special evening
at Gideon's secret lair. And Gideon's like, was I just invited
to my own secret lair?
So I know I talked about it a little bit during episode 1, but the cast is just so good. Like
Ellen Wong, the actress who played Knives in the movie, and in the movie she has great delivery. Obviously, she's fantastic in it, and she has such a strong performance in this as well. Like just her reading of the lines has such a good vocalization and good impact that it's amazing. It's perfect. I love it.
Yeah,
and Jason Schwartzman is fantastic.
Jason Schwartzman kills it. Like, I know we didn't mention it earlier, but Kieran Culkin plays Wallace.
Yeah, it's also great.
He just kills every line delivery. Ramona first talks to Wallace when she walks into the funeral. Yeah. And she's like giving her condolences and stuff. And he's like, it's okay. I like wearing black, and this is as good of a reason as any.
Well, actually, when she walks up, he's like, oh, Ramona Flowers, the girl of or from Scott's dreams.
Yeah. And he's like, I like wearing black, and this is as good a reason as any.
I like what you've done with your hair.
Yeah. It's all fantastic. His line delivery is just all so perfectly flat.
But after we cut from this funeral, we have the members of the League showing up at the secret lair, and they all start to meet up as they walk in, and it's just some easy banter between them. Like Lucas Lee's talking to Todd Ingram, and he's like, so I heard you're getting into the acting scene. Todd's just like, yeah, with my vegan powers I can memorize any script. It's so easy. And Lucas just like, for my last several movies I didn't even read the script, and then I did it all improv. It's called being in the moment.
And then Roxy's like, is that why a third of your dialogue in your last movie was let's party?
And Lucas is just like, wouldn't know, didn't watch it. And then he sits down at the table, and Gideon's butler walks up and offers him a drink. And he's just like,
let's party.
Yeah.
So they're all sitting at the table. They all have their drinks.
Gideon arrives, and they're all just like, so, why'd you summon us here? Gideon's just like, I didn't.
And then somebody says, who invited the robot? And then walking in from off screen, we hear, nobody invited the robot.
And then the two twins, Kin and Ren?
Yeah, Kin and Ren.
Are just like, we built him. He's our very first robot. We call him O1, and we gendered him.
Yeah. And then
Matthew Patel goes, there are no plus ones. My events are curated.
Yeah.
And just rips its head off. To which they both get a shocked response panel. That's great.
And so he basically is like, I brought us all together because...
I defeated Ramona's newest boyfriend. And I was just like, Ramona has a new boyfriend?
And then Ken and Ren are like, it seems like she had
a boyfriend.
And Matthew's like, yes, but the problem is...
I didn't get anything for it. I don't even get to date Ramona.
If we beat her new boyfriend, we don't get to date her.
And they're like, wait, what?
And then Gideon's like, yes, but you're the lowest ranked Evil X. Why
would you
would
really think you'd be the one to date her?
You were fighting her boyfriend so that I could date her. And the rest of the table's like, well, that seems really unfair. Like,
we do this all for nothing. That seems like a bad deal.
Yeah. And Matthew Patel's like, exactly. And that's what I've come here to correct.
And then Gideon's like, are you questioning my methods? And Matthew responds with, no, I'm answering them.
And so Matthew challenges Gideon Graves to a fight.
Winner takes all. To which Gideon's like, you're not worth my time. You're a D-list, Broadway, aspirational actor.
Yeah. And he's like, fine, I'll accept.
After everyone mocks him for being scared.
Oh, yeah, because he's like, he makes the D-list actor comedy. Yeah. He's like, I don't need to fight you.
To which Roxy's just like, sounds like you're scared. And she's like, what'd she say? And then everyone responds, except Todd's lines are like half a second behind everyone else. And she's like, she said you're scared. He's like, I know what she said. But I'm not scared. My nickname in high school was Fearless. I wore no fear shirts every day. And then...
Sounds like those shirts were a lie, bro.
Yeah. Lucas Lee responds, sounds like those shirts were a lie, bro. And then Todd's like, seems like G-Man needs to put his fist where his mouth is. So Gideon agrees, but his conditions are that if Matthew wins, he gets everything. His company, all of his charities.
The league,
his movie studios. But if he wins, he gets to take Matthew's life. Mm-hmm. So then they start to fight.
And it's a really good fight. Really,
it's so good. The animation's fantastic.
And for like the first bit of the fight, like
before Matthew uses his magical powers,
Gideon is just dog walking him, like not even breaking a sweat, dodging all of Matthew's attacks,
and then he floors him with a solid punch. And when Matthew stands up, he summons his
hipster demon chicks.
Yep.
I fucking love the hipster demon chicks.
So they start shooting fireballs at him. They get launched into a gym where they then surround him at the free throw box line, and they're just shooting a ball back and forth between each other super rapidly, and then they shoot Gideon with it. He ends up underneath the basketball goal.
And then Patel straight up dunks a fireball on him.
Yeah. And Gideon's sprawled out laying on the ground, and then it elevators down.
Yeah, he uses a remote to like drop the floor so he can escape.
Into a movie studio.
Where he then proceeds to grab a couple swords.
Yep.
And starts dicing the hipster demon chicks up.
He takes out 2 of them, and then Patel smoke bombs, hides, and knocks Gideon into a harness for stunts.
Yeah, a harness rig. Mm-hmm. And like, because nobody's controlling it, he's just stuck floating in the air, which makes him a perfect target for the fireballs.
Except he deflects them all with his swords.
He literally bounces the first set of fireballs back at Patel.
Yeah.
And then when Patel's like, again!
He just keeps blocking them. So he then cuts himself down, and Patel and his 2 remaining demon hipster chicks bail. They start blowing holes in the wall. And we see them go through like a veterinary charity, which he owns, another movie studio that he owns, past all of his awards that he's won with his movie studio, all kinds of shit. Mm-hmm. References to just all the stuff he owns. Yeah. And they end up at a giant vault and try to blow their way through and just smack into it. And Gideon catches up and cuts up the other 2 demon hipster chicks. And then Matthew blows a hole through by the hinge of the vault door.
Yeah.
Because big, heavy, secure doors, really hard to get through. The walls by them, not so much generally. And they fly up a stairwell to the very top. Well, Matthew flies up, Gideon jumps back and forth between
Gideon parkours.
Balconies, yeah.
He hardcore parkours. So then they're fighting on the rooftop. And the demon hipster chicks are gone, but Matthew summons 2 arms out of his back.
Wielding a trident.
And they disarm Gideon of his first sword. So Gideon's down to 1 sword versus 4-arm Matthew Patel with a trident.
Mm-hmm. Mind you, Matthew's not using his other hands or even his feet. The arms are just fucking badass. Mm-hmm. And they manage to knock him off the edge of the building.
And he's holding on by the ledge. And the rest of the Alexis are like, I think it's actually specifically Lucas Lee's like, what are you waiting on? Finish him.
Yeah.
And we pause and wait.
We had a zoom up of Matthew's face as he's looking down at Gideon, and we see his eyes cut to the left,
and
like
he's
looking for something.
He's just waiting and waiting.
And then a guy walks up with a clipboard, and he's like, Mr. Graves, I need you to sign this. The results of this fight were legally binding. And then Gideon's like, wait, he gets everything?
My empire?
My record label?
My lair?
My league?
Home?
My home?
My underwear?
Fine, I'll sign. And he signs it.
And he's like, what are you waiting for, Matthew? Finish me.
Put me out of my misery. And Matthew's like, no, I want to put you into your misery.
So
the robot
01 helps Gideon back onto the roof where he just stays on his knees.
Yeah. And Matthew walks off, which, by the way, we didn't talk about this. Matthew's wearing a kind of dope military coat with giant spikes on the shoulder. It's very nice.
It's very similar to the outfit he's actually wearing in the movie. Mm-hmm. It's got the red. He's got the red and black striped shirt underneath, and the
he's just wearing a different coat.
Jacket. Yeah,
because he was wearing the normal jacket the first time we see him in the anime.
Oh yeah, this one's got spikes on it. That's the big difference. You're right.
Mm-hmm. And it's black instead of the beige.
And sitting in the building, he's like, you all betrayed me, Lucas? And like Lucas makes a scoff noise and walks off. And he goes, Todd?
Todd also just walks off.
Twin one? Sorry, twin?
Other twin? And both just kind of and walk away. And then Roxy's getting ready to leave, and she's just like, at 2, Roxy?
She's just like,
at
fuck
2?
you.
Eat this, holds up a middle finger, and is just like, Roxy, I didn't value you like I should have. You're different than the others. You've got something special. You and me, we could form our own league. A league of 2. And Roxy's just like, I don't need a league to get a girl. Loser. And walks off.
Yeah. I do want to mention, the whole time that they've been outside, it's been raining.
Yeah.
And earlier, while they were watching Gideon and Matthew fight, Todd's been the entire time, because Todd is a vegan, he has superpowers. If that doesn't make sense to you, watch the movie, read the graphic novels. I don't know what to tell you. But Todd has superpowers because he's a vegan, and he's been like using his superpowers to create a shield above his head so he doesn't get rained on. And at one point,
he's just like, I need to stop eating meat.
So good.
And Todd just looks confused by her statement.
Yeah.
So after we leave Gideon moping on the top of his formerly owned building, we then cut to Ramona, who has just gotten home, and she's having flashbacks to like her one date with Scott, and then she goes to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see her in the subspace highway, and we hear Scott's voice calling out Ramona's name, distantly, kind of echoey.
And then she kicks out of bed, and she's like,
He's alive!
And that's the end of episode 2.
Yeah. So
I like this. I like, honestly,
same.
Matthew Patel has always been my favorite Evil X. I can't really pin down, like, actually, in the graphic novel, what I've read, and out of the movie, I can never pin down why he was my favorite.
Yep.
He just had, like, a certain panache about him.
He had style and panache, and the others were kind of bleh.
Like, otherwise, I think it's, like, Todd is probably the best. Like, Lucas is just a dick.
Yeah.
But Todd is, like, a beautiful, beautiful himbo that, like,
yeah.
I love him.
He's fantastic.
Matthew
and
Patel.
Roxy's better in the comics, in my opinion, like a lot better.
Yeah.
And also, she doesn't have her movie weakness. Instead, that's an envy weakness in the comics.
Mm-hmm. But,
oh, and the twins actually have dialogue in the comics.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them much better, but they have dialogue at least.
Their dialogue is so plain in the movie, in the animation. Like, they're so, like...
Yeah, they're meant to be kind of robotic-esque.
Yeah, but... Oh, Matthew Patel, like, has always been my favorite. And it's like O'Malley and whoever's adapting this was like, you know who the coolest Evil X is?
Matthew Patel.
Matthew Patel. You know who deserves more screen time? Matthew Patel. And God, I love them for it. Like, giving Matthew Patel, like, a full-on story arc outside of gets shit beat out of him at Rocket. I love it so much. Thank God. I love him. I would watch more of this strictly because of the Matthew Patel. Like, I would agree. This is the best.
But yeah, no, Kyle and Kin are fun. Well, more fun in the comics.
Yep. So, would you watch more?
Yeah, I definitely would.
Have you watched all of it already? Did you binge watch it?
I have not. I intend to soon, though.
Fair enough. Well, I would watch more. You would watch more. What's your favorite thing about this adaptation so far? I mean, mine's Matthew Patel. Mine's the Matthew Patel love.
I mean, so if we're talking about purely from a story point, not just the presentation, it's Matthew Patel. But if we're talking about presentation-wise, I love the framing that they've used, the directing framing that they've used throughout the show. Like, it's still very similar to Edgar Wright's directing, but it has some really, really great shots, and I really enjoy that. And I really do enjoy Science Star's animation style and the way that they've done the comic so much fucking justice in its artistic style, but blended it with their amazing animation.
Yeah.
Is fantastic. Like, even like the fight with Matthew and Gideon, like basically every move up until we get into the movie studio, every move, especially when they're just using normal fists, has a sound effect that's going with it when they're moving. Even if you don't see it, it adds so much style and panache to it. And like the colorations are different for both of them as well. Like, it's just a nice, neat little thing, which takes way too much time to animate and is definitely not necessary.
No, but like, it is necessary for Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim has this je ne sais quoi about it.
That uses that,
It has this je, which is just so much about what makes Scott Pilgrim an excellent property.
But like, what I'm saying is, like, adapting it from a comic, when the movie does it, it feels more jokey because it's, hey, look at these comic book effects, but done in real life. It's adding humor and levity to it, which you can already get in animation without adding the physical sound effects as much.
Because the live action movie is like very much also a comedy.
Yeah, I mean, so is the comic and so is this. But the fact that I would expect to see that once or twice in some anime piece, like for some like more comedic effects in moments. But the fact that they took this thing that is so easily just ignored when you're adapting a comic into an anime or into a cartoon or whatever, and they just wholeheartedly embrace it, and it's just like, yo, it is definitely part of the style of the comic.
You know what else is a little bit insane?
What's up?
They got the entire fucking cast back.
Yeah.
And like, doesn't surprise me. I'm like, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is one of those movies where like, when you hear the cast talk about it, nobody says bad shit about it.
Yeah, again, like I mentioned to you before, like the only bad, quote unquote, bad thing I've heard about it wasn't even bad. It was just Jason Schwartzman lamenting the fact that he chose to swallow the gum in the final fight, like right before the final fight scene.
And they took that scene like 6 or 7 times, so like, it's a bunch of gum he's swallowing.
Yeah, they took that scene several times, and I think it was like, he mentioned, I think it was something like on the second or third take is when he decided he was going to swallow the gum because it was accidental the first time, and it was just like, that actually is a great moment, like a brief, good little moment. They're just like, cool, we're doing that now. And so Jason Schwartzman chose to actually swallow the gum each time.
Yeah.
And like, that's the only complaint I've heard, is just like, man, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for flying with us. If you want to reach out to us, let us know your opinions on Scott Pilgrim Takes Off for Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Whether it be the manga, comic, whatever you choose to call it, the movie, or the video game.
You can do that in a myriad of ways. You could email us at copilotsreview@gmail.com.
You could find us on X, I guess.
The app formerly known as Twitter.
At Copilots Review. Or you could find a link to our email and our Twitter and our Discord and our Patreon
YouTube.
And our YouTube, our extremely outdated YouTube.
At copilotsreview.simplecast.com.
Yep. So, thanks for flying with us, and please fly again soon.